Welcome to Sparking Success with Aaron Opalewski. Aaron brings you conversations that spark innovation, cultivate leadership skills, and pave the way for your business success. In each episode, we delve into the dynamic world of business and leadership, exploring strategies, insights, and success stories that fuel your professional journey.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sparking Success. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that I'm really passionate about. And there's more than 7 steps to this. I want to make that clear. But we're going to talk about 7 things that leaders are responsible for. And these are things that both I've learned from some of my mentors and found to be true, in my own business, and then just things that I've learned from experience, sometimes mistakes, in what we do, every day over what's now been a 17-year period. It's great when you learn that way and we grow, from our mistakes, that's part of it, right? It's even better when we can learn from other people and we can streamline some of our speed, take our curve down and speed up our ability to succeed through learning from others. So I hope that some of the stuff that we go through today, you're able to put it into your business, your life, your team that you lead. We're all leaders. You're leading someone in some capacity. If you have a family, you're leading, your family. You're a leader to your kids. Maybe you are a coach on a sports team. Maybe you are, it could just be anything, right? But don't just segment this only to business, even though we're going to talk about it from a business principle. So I think this is a good episode for anyone to pull some nuggets on how they can lead others. So let's get into it. So the first way that I believe we set the foundation for being a good leader is going to be by our example. We have a core value. Leading by example isn't just the way, it's the only way. And we don't number out our core values, but I do think that's where it all starts. That's the foundation of leadership, is that you can't really move someone to do something that you're unwilling or incapable of doing, or you're incapable of teaching. So a lot of the time that's through our experience and then transfer of knowledge on that experience, and also in our showing or teaching or both. Sometimes the way we teach is to show or do with. And these are just some of the ways we can lead by example. I do think, we were talking to our internal team about this the other day in one of our leadership meetings. We gave this talk. And I think that as your role grows, or your team grows, your businesses grow, as things evolve, the way you lead by example may change. It may not, but you may have to get creative or just may shift on how you do that. For me, when I started in recruiting and I was calling on openings, every single day and maybe placing someone in an entry-level light industrial job, well, that's not something that I do every day. But hey, maybe once a month, once a quarter, I can go sit in our, recruiting area and I can take a call, or I can listen in on one and give input, or I can help with an offer that we have going on, find a way to get involved in the process and stay fresh on it. I also give the example on this, even as we sit here today and we're recording this, I had 3 conversations that were recruiting conversations for people that we're trying to look at to come into our business. I had a conversation this morning at 7 o'clock, at 8 o'clock. I had a call around 1 at 10 o'clock. I had prep last night. A big part of my day is still, and my job here is to be a recruiter. We'll get to that as we keep going down the list, but this is a way that I can lead by example that, in our, company, we do recruiting, staffing, workforce solutions, and we have a mantra that we're all recruiters. Well, how can I lead by example on that if I'm still not maybe making 30, 40 recruiting calls a day? It's that I'm still in the mix. I'm still recruiting. I'm recruiting internal talent, and I'm willing to help where it's needed, or I'll step into a call, or I'll provide guidance on a call to someone, in between meetings or on certain days, or, maybe once a month. I'm going to find my spots to do that. So what's the second thing? Well, you got to be a great vision caster. And so when you're leading a team, it is important to lead by example. You also need to cast a big vision. Your vision needs to be able to fit other people's vision inside of it. And we have to get really good at explaining that to people on what our vision is, and then understanding their unique gifts and figuring out where they fit in that vision. A lot of times we have to show them where they fit in that vision, or kind of develop them into what we see them, being capable for. And I think that we have to do this in a way that we have to really look at what they want to get to and where they're at, and meet them in the middle on hey, they might want to go here. Well, can they get there? Can they do that? Yes, maybe that's not to be revealed yet. Maybe you feel different, or they could go a different direction, but having some micro steps to a bigger vision. Some people would refer to this in a 1, 3, 5 year vision. That's not a bad way to look at that, but you want to have chunk goals or objectives to get to a bigger one. So how do you vision cast for your people? I think the other part of this is whatever that they want to do. I'm a big fan, and something that I was just doing right before we recorded this is I have some of my direct people that I work with every day create vision sheets. And so we do this because it's important that not only I talk to them about the vision of the company or where I see them fit, but that at least for the people that I'm interacting with daily, the people, I don't like to really look at it this way, but the people that are reporting to me, or I'll say it the people that I'm working together with, on a one-on-one setting the most, it's very important that I understand what their personal vision is too, what they want to do, that I help them tweak that I challenge them on it, that I make sure that it's specific, because I believe you need to set specific, tangible goals. Not always time bound, but they need to be specific. They need to be tangible. I don't like to have vague goals. I've been taught not to do that. And I try and share that teaching with others, because it's been very impactful in my life to, yes, have a big vision, to visualize, and to, do the daily work, but setting specific things, specific targets to go after, and not giving myself the excuse of vagueness has been impactful in my life. And it's my, role, I believe, for others to kind of help them mold that too, because it's something that I had to work on. I thought I was good at it, and I actually wasn't as good as I initially thought. I was sometimes vague in what I would put down. So I kind of look at it as a skill, something you learn. And anything that's a skill that you have to learn is something that you should be teaching to others as you get better at it. Okay. So the third thing, and I alluded to this earlier, so I'll go quickly on it, would be you need to be the top recruiter on your team. You have to be a great recruiter. And so that doesn't change as your business scales or whatever. In my opinion, you should be the number one recruiter on your team. And again, in our business, which happens to be recruiting, it's a great way for me to lead by example that we're all recruiters, is that I still, to this day, interview every single person that steps foot in this door to work within our portfolio companies. And maybe we'll get to a point where I can't do that, or I should reiterate that we will at some point get to a point where that is not physically something that I'm able to do. But I'm going to squeeze every last inch out of being able to do that. I will do that for as long as we can. We sit here today, we have 60 people on the team. Our target right now is to get the right 66 people on that team to go out and achieve our next objective that we're working on as a group. And there's no way that I'm not going to be involved in every one of those interviews, right? Physically, what do I think right now? I don't know. I think I can at least run this up to double that, 120, 130 before I'm not interviewing every single person. And we'll see. I'm going to keep that at the forefront of the DNA of our company for as long as I can. I've made the mistake of thinking we were scaling too fast, or we were getting too big for me to do that, or it was time to grow up and be a real business. And boy, if I could save you a ton of time. That's one of the biggest mistakes that I've ever made, was where we got to the point in our second year, which is hard for me to say, where I thought that the right move was for me to stop interviewing people because I need to delegate all responsibilities. And we talk about this in other episodes, but you need to be careful who you take your advice from, even when that advice is well-intentioned. If you're not taking your advice from someone that's done something and done things you want to do, you're most likely going to go down a treacherous path. And that's what happened to me in that instance. I took bad advice from people that were well-intentioned, but had never run a business at the scope, scale, and size that I was at, didn't have the same visions and aspirations. And just, you got to be careful where you take your advice from. You're not going to see a shortage of advice out there, but you better know what that person's built, what they've done. You should be able to tangibly see it over a period of time. And if they've done things you want to do, okay, now you can listen. At least you have a platform to listen. If it's all theory, I highly recommend that you find someone else to get your advice from in that area. And we've talked about this before. Again, this can be different in different areas. Someone that can give you great advice in business, well, they might not be the best guide in your faith. Someone that is great in business, their family life could be a wreck. Now, they might be able to give you really good business advice. And just because they're a wreck in one area doesn't mean that they can't provide great guidance in another. But that doesn't mean that just because someone's talented in one area that you should take everything they say as it's biblical. So there's that. Back to the list. Number 4, as a leader, you have to be a great developer of people. When I hear a leader talk about, we need better people and my team's not developed, like no one's getting it, and take none of the accountability on that, I know that we have a problem, or that's a failure on my part. Because let me be crystal clear on this. If you hear nothing, hear this. This would be a good thing to take from today. If you are a leader and your team is lacking development or ability, there's 2 ways this goes. Either you need to assess that you've done everything that you can to develop them and they are not capable, or you need to lead by example, work with them, show them, teach them, train them, put them on your hip, role play with them, do everything in your power to build them and develop them into what you need. That is your job as a leader. A leader that sees it differently is a leader that will fail. They're not a servant leader, and I believe they will not be effective for sustained periods of time, if really any time at all, because no one wants a leader that's not willing to help them develop. Again, hear me out. That doesn't mean that you can develop everyone to do any job. If someone was trying to develop me to be a great doctor, I promise you, I'm a very hard worker. I'm very motivated, but that would fail every single time. And it'd probably be pretty dangerous. I don't have that skill set. That's not where I'm uniquely gifted. And so when you're hiring, this is why, this is important, is you need someone that matches your culture. They need to have the right characteristics. They need to have some capability, or the characteristics that are important to kind of mold someone into what you want them to be in a role need to be there. If I need someone to be outgoing, energetic, good communicating with people, and that's just not their unique skill sets accounting, and I have them in business development, then it's on me for having them in the wrong area. I probably need to assess that. But if I have someone that has a skill set and I'm just not willing to invest time and develop them because I'm too busy, or I got too much things going on today or whatever. Well, I need to structure into my day, into my week, into my communication with my direct reports, ways that I'm going to communicate and work with them on development. And when I can't do that for where they're at, I need to find a way to address that in getting them involved with another leader or getting them outside consulting training or something. I have to do something. I can't just leave them out to dry. And so that gets into our next step, number 5, or the 5th thing we're going to talk about today. And that's conflict. So this is one I really struggled with as a leader. It's something that I've had to work on over time. I've needed reps on this, to get better at it. And I am a lot better at it, but I'm not saying that I'm perfect, and I'm not saying that I enjoy every one of these conversations. A great book that I've recommended before for this, that I always recommend, is The Motive, because it talks about embracing conflict as a leader, and that's just part of the role, and that if you're not willing to accept that, that you're probably in the wrong role. Like, leadership might not be for you if you're going to avoid conflict or try and focus on keeping the peace or being friends with people over doing what's right or what's best for them or what's best for the team, the mission, the company. And so there is the ability to hold people accountable, within conflict. And then there's another side to it too. Like this accountability piece and talking to people and having, I don't even like to call them tough conversations. It's constructive conversations around topics that ultimately you're coming to them from a good place, because your job is to help them develop, win, become a professional in their role. And if they need coaching on that or constructive criticism on that, and you don't give that, you're failing them as a leader. And if that's because you're scared to address things because you're scared of conflict, like, you got a real problem. Like, you're not meeting the criteria of a leader and you're failing that person. So there's that side of it. Here's the other side of it, conflict resolution. And so while you have to be able to talk about, things that, create some conflict or have some dialogue like that, or, address things with people and hold them accountable and teach them about discipline and consistency and all this stuff, it's equally, if not, I'll just say it's equally as important, in my opinion, that you need to be able to resolve conflict. And you need to be able to sniff out where there is conflict or where you need to bring a conversation together. I like to do this physically whenever possible. If people are in different states or something like that, then okay, maybe Zoom. But literally, in some instances, maybe you fly those people out. Like, I want to get people together, and it's my job where I know that, like, something is not working. Like, I have to build a cohesive team. The more people you have, the more complexity you have. We're all imperfect. We all make mistakes. We all get frustrated. We all wish we handled situations differently. Like, if you have a team, there's going to be conflict. And if there's not conflict, at some point, you either don't have a high performance situation, or which is not good, at least in our world where we want a high performance culture. But what most likely has happened is things are getting swept under the rug. And when you get good at conflict resolution, you can keep things relatively simple. And the sooner we get to things, the more straightforward they are to work through, have a conversation, see different sides of it, come to a common, agreement, and get behind whatever decision is made to go out and achieve the mission for the company and figure out how to work together, even if people really aren't best friends. But the more that festers, the longer that goes on. Sometimes this goes on for years. And these are the thing that breaks apart relationships, whether it be, you look at like how divorces happen or partnerships break up or, friendships, no go apart. There's different components to that. But in a lot of situations where people spread apart, there's situations that are not addressed that continue to compound over time. And if we get good at conflict resolution, when we see these things happening, for me, I see it a lot of times on email. Whenever I'm seeing emails fly back and forth, I'm not going to say always, but a lot of times my direction and coaching to members of the team is, hey, you guys have had a couple responses back and forth. You guys need to get together. Go, meet face to face, call each other on the phone. Because sometimes you might get to an end of conversation and someone might get in the last word and we might think that's good. But I think one of the worst things that can happen, in my opinion, in business is you get the last word but that word sits, with that other person, it festers, and you might move on, but someone might carry that with them. And next thing you know, you just got these issues on your team. So this is not an easy thing. This is a nuanced thing. And I want to, say that because I'm not going to talk about it for 3 hours, but I probably could. And just as a leader, you're not going to be perfect on this. I know I'm not. In my own conversations and in catching everything, I'm not going to catch everything, but where I see stuff, where I see a problem, it's my job to fix it. That could be picking something up off the floor. That could be, I see that 2 team members just aren't on the same page, and I'm going to try and get them aligned and on the same page. That's my recommendation, that you get good and you look for situations that need to be resolved, and you try and find common ground towards a mission, your values, team goals, objectives, whatever it is. Find the common ground, bring those people back together, get them doing that in person, listen to each other, be a mediator, whatever you got to do, even if it's uncomfortable for you. This is important to work on. Ties me into number 6, which is you got to show care for the team. And a lot of the things that we talked about, I think, are ways that you can show care for the team. Something that one of my mentors said to me recently is, Aaron, as your I think you guys do a good job of this, and I appreciated that he said this, but as you guys continue to grow, at some point you might not know everyone's name, and I still do now, but it's true that I don't have as direct of a relationship with everyone within our organization. As we continue to grow, I expect that will continue. And so is one of the unique components that you have right now in your organization, is that everyone really knows how much you care about making sure they have an opportunity to grow. Like our purpose as a company is to help people grow, and people can feel that in our organization, that that's something that I care about. But as we get bigger and bigger, people get less and less time, seeing that, or even where we're at now, like not everyone may understand that the same way. So as you're growing, it's very important that you show care through your actions. And again, we got some compliments on how we do that, but that, has really got me thinking, about like, well, what are we doing for that? And so there's things that we've done and communicate around, bonuses and raises and career paths, and making sure you understand them, and contests, and experiences, and something we're working on right now internally that like we really should have at our size, but there's some complexities to it with the type of business that we have, is like our 401k plan. And we have one synthetic equity program that we have for Spark Talent, which is one of the bigger entities within our portfolio. But I'm working on something else that would be like even more aggressive than that for the overall portfolio. And that's not something I'm going to talk about any further at this point. But the point is that we got all of these things going on, and they're tangible action things that like our benefit programs and what we offer for that. Just all kind of like, what actions can you put that people can see that's like, hey, like they talk about these values, talk about, these situations. I hear these certain things, but people need to see it, specifically people that are coming in, or, maybe not as close to some of the leadership. Like, well, what are I hear this person talk once a week or whatever it is. Well, what are the tangible actions behind this? So we just rattled off a few, but I think that really resonated with me, is like, man, like I'm all about action. I think you have a conversation with people's actions, not just their words. And it was just a different way for me thinking about it literally this week, is like, man, like I do think we do a good job of this, but let me be aware of that. Like, as we keep growing, like we got to keep finding ways to put action behind our words, so that really we can paint the picture for newer people coming in that are getting ingrained with our culture, that this is what we're all about at every level. So, okay. And then number 7, the last thing for today. And again, this is not the only list, but these are just 7 things that I think are super important to being a good leader. And that is, you create safety, for your team. create safety. And the first person I heard say it to me that way is Ed Milet. And I want to give him credit for that because I didn't come up with that. Now we're literally like half of what I just said, around what we're talking about with how people are going to earn income or be able to save for retirement or how they can afford their health care and things that come up in different seasons of life. That is a part of actionable ways that we can provide safety. And some of the other things we mentioned are that too. But what I mean more is like in times of turmoil, and I won't say this as well as Ed, but he gave an analogy of the ocean, on a call, that I was on. I heard him talk about this, and it's basically he was talking about when there's a storm, right? The ocean is crazy. It's wild at the top, on the surface. Things can be chaotic. There's storms, there's damage, it's uncontrollable. And we're grateful enough to have a home that's right on the ocean, and it's beautiful and an amazing experience, and just something that I'm super grateful for. But it's also a little scary, when you're there, because you realize how small you are and how little control you have over something that's that big and is beautiful, but also can create a lot of damage. And so as he's talking about this, like you see the reality of that makes sense. Like there's a storm and things are chaotic on the top. He talks about what does a leader need to do in times of turmoil? You go to the bottom of the ocean, and, you go down a couple 100 feet and it's calm, even no matter what's going on the surface. And our businesses and us as leaders need to be a lot like that. Is that there can be chaos going on within the business. And one of the ways that we create safety, within our businesses is things are chaotic. And a lot of times things are chaotic in business when they're going really well, or you're on the cusp of major growth, or people are having breakthroughs, and part of those breakthroughs and growth is uncomfortable, right? So it's like sometimes the times when they're the most stressed out. And it's so important as leaders that in those moments, especially when we know this is a physical representation of them growing, they're having a hard time. There's this chaos going on. There's all these things going on. And sometimes it's not growing. It could be problems, but we need to be steady. You need to be calm. You need to be someone that creates safety that way, that hey, yes, this is what's going on, but reminders of us working through these things, or some of the best success stories come through failure, chaos, conquering adversity. That's why, we have a core value: conquering adversity is the recipe to success. Your job as a leader is to be the rock in these times. And that was a great analogy. I did not say it anywhere close to as well as Ed said it. But I found that to be true. And I found that to be a really good challenge for me as we continue to grow and we continue to come up against challenges and chaos and things that come up. And as great as this day, we're recording this, I literally think this is potentially, well, verbally, we have to go out and execute this, but this is a huge day in the history of our portfolio of companies. It's a huge day for things that we've got verbal commitments on today. It's my job to go execute those to fruition, but it's a huge day. What's also true is that I could tell you, I'm not going to get into them, but 8, 9 things that are going on that you'd be like, holy crap. Wow, there's a ton that. That's a lot to handle. And my wife's been on this, ride with me for 10 plus years, this week. She texted me today. She knows a lot of the stuff going on. That's kind of the blessing and the curse of being, married to me in our situation, is that she knows a lot what's going on. And she texts, she's like, I love you. I love being on this wild ride with you. And that's exactly what it is. Is my job during some of these things, all these great things happening today, things that are going to be historic, for this company. I believe they really are. I mean it when I've not said that we've done this, probably our 61st episode. I've never said that this is a historic day in the company. We've talked about some big things. This is a big day for the organization. And at the same time, we had some major challenges that I was on the phone on until 11 o'clock last night, again at 6 a.m. this morning, multiple times throughout the day. And what's my job in all that? Listening to my leader that was, directly working on that and taking running point on that, hearing them out, being steady for them, helping them out, giving them guidance, telling them, hey, we can't avoid this. We got to address this. But it's okay. Breathe, take a minute. Like, you've been responsive enough. You can move the next step of this to tomorrow. Like creating, stepping in, not micromanaging for them, but giving them enough guidance, support, putting my arm around them and just telling them it's going to be okay. And then being there for them, being in the mix with them both last night, this morning, at any point they needed today on that. Like, that's what you got to do. And I'm not suggesting that I did it perfectly. But that's just a part of the role and a part of what we do. And so it's just a good reminder for us that when things are chaotic, you want to do everything you can to be the calm and steady presence on your team. Hope that resonates with you today. I ask that if it does, you share this with at least one other person. If you haven't left us a review, we'd ask that you do that. And I hope this helps you in some way. Have a great day.